Record. Welcome to another edition of the Up and Down here with Frank and yours truly, Friday Paulie. This week we're at Riviera Country Club out in LA. How's it going this week, Frank?
Good, man. Gave a little bit of money last week. Gave it back a little bit, but eventually we're going to hit one of those big 10x or 15x weeks, and be good moving forward. We have an overlap this week, which will be exciting. Really fun, interesting course out in LA, and it'll be this field is probably about as good of a field as you'll see in a non-major event. 9 of the top 10 guys in the world showed up this week.
Yeah, I mean, last week for me it was a bit tilting because it was the second time in 3 weeks where you pretty much had the perfect storm in terms of my outright bets. So, like a couple weeks back at Torrey Pines, going into the back nine, normally I'll bet a handful of players each week, right? Going into the back nine at Torrey Pines, I had the guys that were 1, 2, and 3 in the leaderboard, which never happens, right?
Yep.
And this past week, going into the final round, I only bet 3 guys to the tournament. And 2 of them we mentioned here, obviously last week, were Jason Day and Phil Mickelson, right? And with the way the leaderboard was set, there was only 3 guys that were winning that tournament because of how separated they were. It was Nick Taylor, Phil Mickelson, or Jason Day. And I'm sitting there pretty with anybody but Nick Taylor. But the thing is, where Taylor was at, I didn't want to hedge because Taylor was only like plus 165 going into Sunday. And I thought those odds were way too low for Taylor to win, so I didn't even bother hedging. I thought his true odds were like plus 300, plus 220 maybe. So I didn't want to just hedge for the sake of hedging when I knew that I had guys in my stable that I thought were more likely to win than Taylor at that point.
Yeah, you had to be sitting pretty there on Sunday considering, Nick Taylor was in the lead. You had to be thinking that Phil started 1 back, I think.
Yeah.
So you had to be thinking that he can beat him by 1 stroke, and if not, maybe Jason Day even makes a run at it.
Well, it's one of those you have to figure maybe half the time Taylor just kind of gives it back to them, right?
Yeah.
And then you figure maybe a quarter of the time Phil or Jason just take it away from Nick, right? Nick could play okay, but one of them catch high, right? So that leaves about 25% where he wins, which is about that plus 300 that I was kind of mentioning earlier, right? So it is what it is. All you can do is get yourself in the correct position. It's kind of like poker, right? You have pocket aces. You got all in with the best hand. You just didn't win the hand. Somebody flopped 3 of a kind, right?
Yeah, your odds of winning money there were quite high, and unfortunately, just didn't come out on top for you.
Yeah. But this week we got a great event. So it's Riviera Country Club out in LA. In terms of like the course setup, this is one of the courses that favors like the bombers, long hitters more than any other course on tour. If we just look back at all the people who have won or have had success here, and that's just the way the course is set up. Pretty much players are able to drive around almost every hole. The course is very long. There's not a lot of short holes besides like number 10 there, which is a drivable par 4, which is one of the most tricky holes on tour actually, believe it or not, even though it's like 300 yards. But players are not going to be, and it's not a wedge fest, right? Yeah, obviously, if you have someone hitting the ball 350 at the tee, maybe, but you're going to have a lot of shots in the 150 to 170 range. Greens tend to be very firm. You have rough where if you miss the fairway, it's very difficult to control your ball out of. So this is one where if you hit it far enough up there, you can maybe control it with a wedge. But if you miss the fairway and have 160 versus a guy that's at 135, the guy hitting a wedge from 135 has a stone chance of, holding the green. Where if you're 160 and hitting an 8-iron, it's going to be very difficult to control your ball into the green at all.
Yes, and there's a lot of very strategically placed bunkers here near the fairways that are quite deep. So, you're either splitting the fairway here to compete at a high level, or you're throwing it over the fairways, right? Like 300 over the fairway bunkers, 300 carries, things like that. Which is, you see DJ play well here. You see Bubba play well here. It's very much a Bubba track. JB won here last year, mostly because JT pissed it away on the back when he 4-putted and 3-putted, on the back 9 and lost by 1. But you see guys that hit the ball high, hit the ball far, tend to play well here. From a statistical standpoint, this is probably the second lowest course on tour for driving accuracy, where the importance and relative importance to the field. And I think the reason for that is just because, like you said, guys have to be able to hit the ball far. You got to be able to go after it. There's a lot of drivers. 2 of the shortest par 5s on this course on tour and one of the shortest par fours, but all the other holes are in that 450 to 500 range.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of shots from 175 to 200. And luckily for me this week, I kind of like my horses because the guys that, that I'm targeting here tend to play long irons well. That being said, I don't particularly like anything crazy at the top of the board. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Rory comes in as the favorite. I think that's obvious why he hits the ball further than anybody else. And he's the best player in the world right now. So you're looking at Rory, Rahm, Thomas, DJ, and Tiger, under 20 to 1. I'm going to go ahead and say you probably don't like any of these guys this week.
Yeah, so in terms of setup at top of the board, we have a better field than usually have a normally good field here, right? It's better than normal here because of the change of the format of the event. And the format, so this event used to be just a normal tour stop. It used to be,
Yep.
It's gone, different names back to the U.S. Open way back when, right? And then it became a couple other names, then it became the Genesis, right? And so it always had a full 144 player field, right? Well, this is the first year it's called the Genesis Invitational, and what that means is it's a invite-only event, which means it's limited to 120 players.
Yep.
So what that means is you're now looking at a little bit more compact field where you have about 20 less, what's called scrubby players in the field, right? So it's a big thing to notice when you're looking at like cut percentages and stuff like that, or even the leaderboards can be a little more compact with less players, right? And you're also going to have these players, since it's an invite, it's also with, the correlation of Tiger, you're having all these guys show up, right? This is like a WGC event in terms of like the strength of the field, right?
Yep.
Like you have anybody that's the top player in the world has pretty much said, okay, I'm playing this week, just because it's a great course, it's Tiger's event, and, I love it for TV purposes because you're going to have a leaderboard on Sunday that probably has 2 or 3 guys that are in the top 15 in the world battling it out, and that's all you can ask for. So,
yep.
But in terms of like the top of the board, yeah, it's really hard to to press send on a bet at low odds here when there's so many people that can win this event, right? Because of how deep the top of the board is here, right? You have guys that are would in a normal PGA Tour week be the first, second guy on the odds board, and they're 12th or 13th in this field in terms of odds, right?
Yeah, you see it last week. The field difference here is remarkable. That how many bad players were in last week's field compared to now. But that being said, it's not necessarily a board that I like at the top. And we've seen in the past at this track where these mid-range guys tend to win, where these like 20 to 30 to 50 to 1 guys tend to win. I think James Hahn won here at like 200 to 1 when the course was really tough, set up the one week. But other than that, there's a clear-cut kind of golfer that succeeds here.
Yeah, and the other thing, the leaderboard usually is really compact, especially at the top. You'll have the difference between the cut and the leader be like 8 shots. We see this all the time because there's not a lot of hazards in this course, but not a lot of water. There's out of bounds on a couple holes, doesn't really come into play much, and so guys aren't making like quadruple bogeys here. They're just and they're also not making 9 birdies around most of the time, right? They're grinding it out, shooting 200 par. They'll make 4 birdies, 2 bogeys, and then someone else shoots even par with 2 birdies, 2 bogeys. So whenever you have that, you have the ability for anyone to have a chance. It doesn't mean they're going to close, right? They can have a chance come Sunday, and a lot of times you see those guys fade off into the sunset, right? So,
yeah, and that has happened quite a bit. You said about JT, but guys have come back to the field pretty quickly. It's a hard track to shoot 7 under every day, or even one day shoot 6, 7 under. It's hard to get there, but it'll definitely lead to some excitement on Sunday with this field and with the tightness of the leaderboard. I don't know if you saw anything about the setup this week. I haven't, but it tends to play like in between 10 to 15 under. I think the one year played like 6, 7 under at the top, and then I've seen years where DJ blew out the field and shot like 17 under or whatever. So I would tend to expect it to be like 12, 13 under is the winning score here.
Yeah, based on the weather that we've seen in this area, of late, I would expect it to be pretty firm. And we saw it pretty firm at Pebble last week, which isn't obviously that close, but still up in California, they haven't received a ton of rain. So when Riviera plays firm and fast, the scores, tend to plummet in terms of like the amount under par. So I would think somewhere 11, 12-ish as a win here, because it's going to be hard to go super deep. Like, I understand with it being firm, the ball's going to go forever up the tee. That also means it's going to be hard to keep it in the fairways. And also, it's going to be harder to get it close to the greens. Even if you have a wedge, if the ball's releasing 15 feet in the greens, it's going to be tough. Also means when you miss the greens, which you're going to miss more of, right? The greens are firm and fast. Like we saw how last week at Pebble, how fast the greens were, right? Because they've had perfect weather and how firm they were. And that makes it a little more difficult. I mean, that was a track where they're only 7,000 yards. Now, sure, the wind got up, and that's why scores changed. But whenever a golf course is firm, it shows who's the best player more often than a soft golf course. Because it's not just aim at the flag and hit it. You have to,
and outside of a couple guys, I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be hitting 6, 7, 8 irons into most of these greens. So you're just not going to see a lot of wedges outside of, like I said, a couple guys that are going to be able to hold greens if it does get super firm, super fast.
Yeah. So the first guy I bet this week in terms of like odds was kind of a no-brainer to me, and that was Bubba Watson at 22-1. And you may be wondering why bet Bubba Watson in the field of 22-1 when you can get guys like Patrick Cantlay or Brooks Koepka at similar odds, right? That seems a little bit weird, but this is like Bubba is like a course or a horse for certain courses, and this is one of them. And he comes into this event playing great. He's finished 6th and 3rd his last 2 starts, hitting the ball absolutely great, and he's won this event 3 of the last 6 years. So I understand there's a lot of stars at the top of this field, but you're giving me 22-1 for a guy who's won it 3 times and almost won both of his last 2 starts. I'm sold. I'm just not going to overlook it. I have it rated. I think I had it. I think 15-1 or 16-1 in terms of what I thought I think I had 14-1 in terms of what I thought his true odds were. So I'm just going to play that, take the value. I would assume his number's going to drop by the time it starts Thursday. Probably settle around 18 or 19, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it started at 28 or something crazy like that.
There's 28 on one book, lasted about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I have a very small edge on Bubba this week at 22, so I'm not going to play it. I would have considered 28. But, the main reason for my edge, and I don't, the model doesn't look that much at course history, but for some reason, Bubba does have tracks where he just lights up, and I don't know why. The Masters is one of them, right? In here, certainly. It fits his style, but like you said, 18 3 weeks ago, and then a 3rd and a 6th or something like that, his last 3 events. So he comes in playing really well. And the thing the change with Bubba, I mean, he's a good ball striker. We know that. His putting is usually wishy-washy. It just depends on the situation. For some reason, more recently, he's putted well. He's putted really well the last couple of weeks. He's gaining strokes. And, I think the number's justified here. I'm personally not going to play, but I do think the number's justified. And I don't mind the play, considering I think you're going to see almost everyone in the world on Bubba this week. But like I said, it's his track. He owns this place historically. That being said, in the same range here, I'm going to play Cantlay at 20-1. Last year, he finished in the top 10 almost half his events. The one thing with Cantlay is he's not a guy that seems like he's like a grinder, right? Like he just ekes out his couple under par every day and goes about his business. I think the course kind of fits him in that way. He's not a super bomber, but he's a great ball striker. 17th or better than in every single event he's played this year. And last year, if you look at his stats from 175 to 200, he was 4th in proximity to the hole. So I think he's going to have to drive it accurately to win. I think he can do that. But 20-1 for the 4th best iron player in the field and a top 20 guy across the board in every stat category in my model this week. It's not a huge edge. It's like a 1% edge, but I just think he should be closer into that 15-1 range. Even considering this field, he's been one of the best players, one of the best ball strikers on tour for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and that makes sense there. I definitely have Cantlay rated high. Just pretty much, the fact is I couldn't play Cantlay and Bubba, right? You're
100%.
Unless that's all you want to play for the week. So
yeah, I'm sitting here. I was sitting here grinding over both of them, right? Like I'm just sitting here, and Cantlay, UCLA guy, right? So I'm sure he's played here.
Yeah, he's played here. He's played here a bunch, correct? Yeah.
And he has a T15 and a T4 in the last 2 years here. So I would like him at 20-1 to have more win equity than Cantley has had for the last couple of years, but maybe he starts to get over the hump a little bit and you start winning 2-3 tournaments a year.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an issue in terms of him like closing the deal. He just doesn't play that many events compared to other guys. So that's just because of the way he's always had health issues with like his back and stuff. He's not going to play 35 events in a year like a Tony Finau or something like that. He's going to play 20, 23 events per year.
And he tends to play in tougher fields, you know?
Exactly. Yep. And we see when he's won, I think he won what, the Shriners or something like that. I think out.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So that was kind of like a smaller field.
So moving down, I'm guessing we're going to head down towards the mid-range here. Finau's sitting around 30-1. Adam Scott, Matsuyama, Day. Looking further down, Leishman, Reed, Rose, Mickelson. Anybody you like in the 40 to 30 to 1 range here?
There's one that stood out to me here, and that was Justin Rose. I just don't understand this price here. So Rose is sitting here at 40-1, and he's the number 10 ranked player in the world. We know he's one of the most elite, tee to green players, right?
Yep.
Drives it long, fairly straight, really good iron player, and the last like five years, we've seen him come on and they're winning a lot of events. That's because he started to putt really well, right? So at 40-1. I just don't understand why he's this high. Because to me, if you're looking at a guy like, let's compare it to Patrick Cantlay again, right? Like, I would think he should have the same odds as Cantlay this week to win. So you're giving me double the odds there. So I just have to play that. It's one of those where he probably wins this event maybe 4 to 5% of the time, and we're getting odds that are saying he's winning it at like 2.5% of the time. So I'm going to have to take that value. Do I think Justin Rose wins this week? No. But do I think the market's price is wrong on him this week? Yes, right. And this is one where you're not betting players, you're betting numbers, right? And this is the case where I'm betting the number for this player because it's just way too high.
Yeah, and he's a great ball striker. We've seen that play out over the last few years. Last year he started the year on fire, and he kind of waned a little bit, and I think that's maybe why we're seeing a number so high. But I was kind of shocked when I looked and I saw Rose at 40, and he's sitting there with like Patrick Reed. You're like, I don't know about that. I was kind of shocked. Me personally, I'm not playing Rose this week, but he's gaining strokes across the board. Another guy who just grinds it out, like you said, like Cantlay, where he just kind of takes his couple under par every day and moves about his business. If the putter gets hot, he can certainly win here. The one thing with Rose I've noticed is like his distance keeps getting kind of longer. His like efficiency. I don't know if his club head speed is going up, but certainly his efficiency is going up over the last year or so. I was shocked to see him, on a few holes last year in the majors where they have shot tracker a lot of the time, where he's driving the ball, 310, 320 sometimes. Kind of was surprising to me. So if he drives it, if he keeps the club head speed up, I could certainly see it this week. It's more of like a regression play, right? Like he hasn't been amazing. He hasn't been like, one of the top golfers in the world again, but like you expect him to keep playing. You expect him to start gaining strokes everywhere,
It's just a little bit of a recency bias play, right?
Yeah.
Also because he happened to miss the cut in his last start at the Farmers, but we know the Farmers is like the most highly variant result of the year for a lot of players because the course is just kind of tough and eats people up if you're not 100% in your game. And it's early in the year. People haven't played that much. You come in there a little rusty. You miss the cut. Okay. And he hasn't really done much.
He also hasn't just been playing.
He hasn't played much. So it's one of those like, looks like, oh, he hasn't really done much this year, so we're just tossing this number out there.
Yeah, I agree. I was expecting to see him in the 20s for sure. I thought so. Similar range for me. Another guy who hasn't played much, but I do like him this week is Adam Scott. He has won at Riviera before. I took him at 35-1. He's like I said, he's won here last 2 years. He has a 7th and 11th finish and one 53rd finish. Last year, the thing with Adam Scott was that he actually played much better golf than he had in the past. Ever since the anchor ban, he has really struggled to find himself on top of the leaderboard, towards the top of the leaderboard. Last year, he was switching putters like every other event. He's switching between, arm lock and the broom and regular length.
Putters in the bag for some rounds, I believe. So.
Yeah, like he was going short. He was going arm lock. He was going, the sweep without the anchor. But last year he was third overall in strokes gained. He's coming off of that win in Australia, which is, you know, a no-name field, obviously. But I still like to see him. You know, I would prefer him to win that event than nothing else. You know, like you said, he's finally gaining strokes putting. Last year he was ninth in like approach around or above 200 yards. So I think that he's certainly a guy with length. He drives the ball well. So he's trending in the right direction. The only thing that kind of concerns me with him, like I said, I would have thought that he would have been in the 20s for this event, but he just hasn't played much, and he certainly hasn't played much in the U.S. I don't know when he's traveled back, but 33 for a guy that's trending 35 to 1, whatever you're seeing, for a guy that's trending in the right direction, and like I said, gaining strokes putting again finally. I think he can win this event, and he's won here in the past, and he's played well here in the past.
Yeah, Scott was one of my first guys off my page in terms of like just missing the outright cut. Yeah, I like the number. My only hesitation was he hasn't played in 7 weeks, so I'm expecting a little bit of a rust, and that's enough to think he's going to finish high, but may not win because maybe the first or second round he shoots 1 over par and puts him a little bit behind the 8 ball to where he's going to play perfect the other 3 rounds, right? Yep. But in terms of like pedigree, he fits the course perfectly. That's why he's always played well here, right? It's a ball strikers paradise. You know, you don't have to shoot 10 under par in a round. You just hit it solid. Give yourself a bunch of 15-footers, knock a couple in, right? You're not going to have to deal with a bunch of, you know, 5-footers for birdie all day. You have a lot of mid-range putts, 15 to 20 feet for birdie, and just hope you hit a couple of those.
Yeah, and the thing about those courses that play, you know, 7-8 under a day, you know, if you want to compete, is they just turn into putting contests, you know. But this place is just, like you said, just ball striking, and that's what it's going to come down to.
And then that's why we tend to see all these bombers compete, because they also tend to be the best ball strikers.
Well, yeah, they're hitting shorter clubs too, right?
Exactly, right. So, and that's why with smaller emphasis on putting, you tend to see, you know, guys play well. They're kind of like the Bubba or DJs, right? Guys that are not the strongest putters in the world, but can beat the living crap out of a golf course tee to green. So.
Yep. So, all right, we're crossing on one guy here. Why don't you start on who we're taking next and why we like him?
Yep. So this is going to be Colin Morikawa. I got him at 50. I think you were able to get him at 60 on one of the books.
He was actually 66 at DraftKings, and I went to submit it to change to 60. So I think they were double lining me or something. So I grabbed 60 on DraftKings.
Well, it was weird because I grabbed 50 on that. So maybe they're triple lining. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I went to submit, and it was like, no, it's not 66 anymore. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe I was getting 66. This is a guy who's been at 30 to 1, 25 to 1. You know, in recent weeks. So
yeah, so basically, Morikawa is one of the best iron players in the world. He's basically Patrick Cantlay is the best comp I can provide for him.
Yeah,
and we're getting 2 to 3 times the price on it, right? So if you compare Cantlay's game, right? Elite iron player, same as Morikawa. Cantlay, not the longest off the tee, but respectable length. But when he's playing well, fairly accurate for the length.
Good mix of length and accuracy, right? Like.
A good combination from off the tee, right? But just not the best putter and short game in the world, right? And that's why they're the same thing, right? So Morikawa played golf at Cal in college, right? So he's very, very familiar with California golf and stuff like that.
I'm sure he's played here a lot. I'm sure. Yeah.
You know, grew up in California, I believe. The other thing is, not a lot of people know he's actually had some history at this course. So he hasn't played the event. But they had the USAM here in 2017, and he finished eighth in the stroke play there, and he got knocked out in the round of 16 on the last hole of the day. Lost the 18th hole to lose the match. So you have a guy who's played this course in competition, which helps in terms of sight lines, understanding where to play on the course. You know, when you're doing USAM prep, he's spending, you know, the week figuring out how to play the golf course. So he's already got notes on that. A lot of times when guys are rookies on tour, they haven't played a course, they're coming in blind. They'll play 1 to 2 rounds, not really understand where to hit it on a certain golf course. And this is a course where you need to know the strategy. You need to know, on this hole, if the pin's in this spot, I need to hit my drive down the left side of the fairway to give myself an angle with this pin. Or like the 10th hole Riviera, this little short par 4 we talk about, right? It's 300 yards, and yet you're going to see guys making bogeys, double bogeys galore on it because of the way it's set up with the way the bunkering is. And you have to know where to hit your tee shot when a pin's in a certain spot, because otherwise you're not able to attack it. So that little extra edge by him playing USAM here helps, because course setup is similar. USGA sets it up. It's going to be firm and fast greens, stuff like that. So Morikawa at a high number of 50 or above is just a no-brainer for me because I have him rated so much lower than that, and I expect him to win, once or twice this year. I have him rated. I think he should be like 33-1 is what I had the true line for him this week. So, what about you, Frank?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my numbers here. Yeah, 30-1 is about what I have him at. So I'm getting double the price on him. I actually have him as the number 1 iron player in the field, which is crazy. And I go back 50 rounds, and kind of do a regression based on recent play. And, he's 9th tee to green so far this year. Now that doesn't include, some of the best ball strikers because they haven't played a lot of rounds. Still, like we said, ball strikers paradise. The hang up with Morikawa and the reason that he just is like a top 20 machine is because he putts at 135th so far this year. But like we said, this isn't a place where it's going to be a birdie fest or it's going to be a putting contest, even like how maybe a little bit like Pebble was last week where like a lot of wedges in and just putt. This is going to be long irons. He is great, with long irons. He has 6 top 25s in his last 8 events. I'm playing him outright. I wouldn't, until maybe you see him putt better. He's also just a great like top 20 bet if you just want to fire on that top 10, top 20 bet. But at 60-1, just way too much when the skills that transfer week to week are ball striking and the putting is a little more variant, a little more up and down. If he ever just, putts average, he's going to have a chance to win a lot of events. And I think he's going to get there eventually. It's not like he has some like gross putting stroke or, he's very smooth around the greens. I think that he'll start gaining some strokes. And like you said, he has some history here, even though he hasn't played it on tour.
Yep. So is there any edges outside of the outright market that you've bet already in terms of like head-to-heads or top 20s or anything like that?
So I was kind of looking at like in the Harman Bud Cauley range for a top 20. I haven't necessarily decided yet. Bud Cauley seems like he's either like if finishes 15th or better or misses the cut. So I don't necessarily mind him as a play. The problem is I don't know if he's long enough to kind of to play there. But when you start getting down in these 150-1, 200-1, they're not long to be. None of these guys are that.
And the top 20 market's interesting this week because one, you have a smaller field, 120 instead of 144 guys. But on the flip side, you have so many top guys here that it doesn't allow a lot of places for long shots to sneak in, right? So like in a normal week where it's 144 players, there's more people, but the field's weaker up top, right? You don't have 15 studs, so there's maybe 2 or like last week, right? There was like 3 or 4 studs at the top, and then just so many of the mid-tier guys, and you're not necessarily worried about those guys, taking your top 20 spot because they can finish 30th without you worrying, right? Or like if you read down the list, the field, you're thinking, okay, Rory, JT, Rahm, DJ, Woods, Cantley, Schauffele, right? You're thinking, okay, well, those guys are all going to finish top 20, so there's like 7 spots gone.
Right.
So like
that's what I'm struggling with is like
now I got 13 left, right?
Like that's what I'm struggling with. Like and Rahm has been on fire too. Like what's a bad finish for Rory or Rahm this week? Like 12th, 15th?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So that's what I'm struggling with. I don't know if I'm going to get into the top 20 market this week. I like to do it, like you said, when the field's a little weaker because you're seeing guys that are 20-1, 25-1 in those fields that are typically 50-60-1 in other fields.
Players at that point,
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking down the board a little bit, I did play Cantley in futures, and I'm going to play him against DJ. I'm getting the same numbers I got last week. And DJ really struggled on Sunday, but he was kind of out of it and probably disinterested. It's not a play that I necessarily in love with. It's kind of just like a normal edge. And it's almost purely because, I got the same number last week. How do I not play it this week when Cantley outplayed DJ last week? This is a course that DJ tears up, but when was the last time DJ competed to win a tournament? Outside of that Saudi event where like he can just bomb it down the fucking, drive like half the greens. When was the last time he competed to win a tournament? Maybe at the PGA when Brooks like shot 4 or 5 over or something on Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, you actually played that many events since then. right?
I mean, he's played. I mean, he played, all through the end of last year. Maybe the Masters when Tiger came back to the field at the end, and DJ shot like 4 under on the back. He just hasn't. I want to see DJ play well. I'm not going to bet on him until I see him actually play well. And his numbers are creeping up in the futures market. I don't know that DJ is a better golfer than Patrick Cantlay right now. The course fits him better for sure. But DJ has to make me believe that, his iron play is there. Like he's just losing strokes on iron play and gaining them elsewhere. He's always going to gain strokes driving. But I mean, he just keeps losing strokes on his iron play. And until he kind of shows that off, I want to see it to believe it.
Yeah, and so I'm on the opposite of the spectrum. I'm very high on DJ this week. So that's one of those.
He's played great here. I mean, I can't blame anybody for liking DJ this week. This is the highest number we've seen on him in probably how long? Maybe like 3 years.
This is one of those where I'm on the opposite of the spectrum and we kind of disagree, which usually happens once or twice a week on some plays, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's bound to happen. But in terms of DJ's setup here, so DJ's last couple of events, he's actually turned it around a bit. Obviously played well in Saudi for a second. Played okay in the tournament championship at Kapalua, so I think seventh. And then last week, through 36 holes, he was right up there. And then all of a sudden it got windy and he got a little squirrely with his game. And then on Sunday, he kind of knew he had to go out and shoot like 61 to win. So he just kind of knew that. And whenever DJ's knows he has to shoot low, he either shoots really low or he'll shoot 77.
He's very like Tiger-like in that way, where like he's gonna go crazy or be disinterested, right?
Well, I'm not disinterested. It's like he doesn't care about finishing fourth in the event at Pebble. Yeah. He wants to be in intention and win because not saying he smelled blood, but he knew if he shot a low round, there wasn't a lot of guys ahead of him. Even though he was 7-8 back, if he shoots 62, there's a chance he wins that, right? Now, obviously Nick Taylor played great, but there was at least the outside chance. So I'm not necessarily looking at how he played that last round. I mean, it was blowing 40 miles an hour at times. So whatever the result is there, I kind of just push under the table and not really care about. But in terms of his record at Riviera, it's been great. I mean, this is a course where it just suits him perfectly. Sight lines off the tee, it's just absolutely perfect. Where I think his last 10 times he's played went 9th, 16th, 1st, 4th, 2nd, miscut, 4th, miscut, 3rd, right? Like, that's an insane record at an event that is a pretty decent field.
Right, so, but we're looking at periods where I think he was playing better golf as well. I mean, it's not to argue that his talent isn't there, that he hasn't been one of the best golfers in the world. If I look at his last 12 rounds, he's losing strokes on approach, he's losing strokes chipping, and he's been putting average. If I look at his last 50 rounds, he's only gained 12 strokes on approach.
What were those, if you're looking at those events, what were those last 12 rounds, right? That was not the Saudi event. Last week, there was not stroke stain stats on 2 of the 4 courses, which were the courses he played on Friday and Saturday at Spyglass and Monterey. I mean, on Thursday and Friday, right?
Yeah, but we still have to take considering that he lost strokes both days on Pebble, too.
Well, both days on Pebble, but those are the days where he's trying to catch up and try to win the tournament. So, and when it's blowing 40 miles an hour, it may not necessarily be his cup of tea. So, like, that's one where, like, when you're looking at maybe not a statistical argument against you here, but it's like, we're looking at a small sample here, and you're, I say cherry picking. We're saying the rounds here from certain events.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not just guessing at the 12 rounds. The 12 rounds are predictive of future performance. It's not just like a meaningful endpoint. I still look back. Like my main thing is, looking back long term. It's something like 75% weighting on longer term. But if I just look at Cantlay. Yeah, DJ gained about 10 strokes off the tee, but Cantlay's gained 20 strokes, and he's beating him around the greens and beating him putting, and that goes back almost a full year. Do I think Patrick Cantlay long-term is a better golfer than DJ? No, I don't.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, the 12 rounds you're counting the Tour Championship as one of those rounds. It's like that was
we need to take – I'm counting them in long-term, too.
Yeah, but then this is where I disagree all the time because – it's just counting a certain event. Where, like, Tour Championship was so long ago, and you're counting one event there and pretending it's like recent results, where it's not recent. It was 5-6 months ago, and it's a course where he's played absolutely horrific. Maybe his worst course he plays in the entire world is East Lake Country Club in Atlanta. The course does not.
But I haven't found any evidence that course history is predictive of future performance.
Yeah, and then that's for me, it's a very, very important variable in terms of course fit with certain
Course fit and course history are different things.
Well, no, I'm talking because of the way a guy gets to the course and the whole suit is eye and the way it sets up. And so and that helps to predict how a guy plays. And the guy plays well at the course, you'll see year over year because of the course fitting his irons are that. Like Mark Leishman playing well at Torrey Pines often because of the way the course sets up for him with having to hit fades off the tees and the way it just looks at his eye and the way it reminds him of courses back in Australia because of the grass type. So that's where I'm always, not necessarily like a model prediction where there's a lot of other things besides the basic model that goes into it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I'm just
and that's why we're on two
looking
different.
at it from a statistical perspective. I just haven't found any predictive ability from guys that finish top 10 in an event tend to play better than average the next year or the next 3 years or whatever. Now, like I said, I can't deny that certain guys have abilities that fit a certain course. I think off the tee play is very important. But from like an approach standpoint, from things like that, all these courses are so close to the skill set that's required to win on a PGA Tour event. But obviously length, like we're talking about, and things like that matter big time. And outside, this course, from an accuracy perspective compared to length, the difference of accuracy and length to like the average PGA Tour course, the only course that's less important or more important, between those two metrics, like the ratio difference, is Kapalua. So, it's like Kapalua and then this course and then Torrey Pines. Those are like the three comps that are like so close to each other. So, and we've seen DJ light those places up. That's not to dismiss it. But right now, I just want to see DJ show it and compete to win because we just haven't seen him compete to win on the PGA Tour in a long time.
Yeah, so it's kind of going back full circle. There's in terms of like a matchup that I like. So I have two matchups that I like. Both are against the same player. Both are against Tiger Woods, believe it or not, here. And that's DJ, which I believe is minus 135 over Woods, and Cantley minus 115 over Woods. So I'm high on DJ and Cantley this week on both, and very low on Woods. And you might be wondering why. So this is kind of going on the course history route and course fit. This is probably Tiger's worst course in terms of fit for his game and performance. He has played god-awful Riviera. I mean, this goes back to when even he was the best player in the world, he would come here and struggle to make the cut. And it's just the way that it just is not set up. For me, he's mentioned it before. Like visually, it just does not set up well for him off the tee. And when a guy at the top of the world doesn't feel comfortable on most of the tee shots, he's just probably not going to play well. And it's one of those where, Tiger sprays it off the tee. Sure, that isn't terribly punishing, but it's going to make it difficult for him here there because, sure, he's got a little bit left in the tank to hit it far, but he doesn't bomb at 330, 340 like he used to, right?
Well, yeah, he's more of a tactician. He's added spin and launched for accuracy at this point in his career, right? Because he's not going to hit it out there anyway. So it seems like he's even said that, like, he wants to get his accuracy up because he knows he can't hit it out there with Rory anyway. Yeah,
and it's one of those, like, sure, I think Tiger's a good player, but you're giving me him against Cantley and DJ, who I just rate higher this week, and I just have the odds that edge on both those are my two biggest edges of the week against Tiger because I'd be willing to bet that Tiger finishes outside the top like 15 or 20 this week, and DJ and Cantley, I'd be surprised if they're not inside the top 15, right? So it's one of those. I'm not saying it's a free bet. I'm just saying that there's going to be a decent amount of time here where after 36 holes, they're separated far enough from Tiger where the bet is most likely close to done. And there's going to be a lot of time. The other half of the time, it's going to be, well, they're going to be pretty close after 36 holes, and it'll be a battle. Right? And you're going to be close to even money on both of them, so I have to take it.
I'm not playing Tiger 18-1 by any means. I'm emphasizing approach play here in distance, obviously, and, kind of de-emphasizing accuracy. I think Tiger, to compete at the top this week, he's basically just going to have to split the fairways. He's going to have to hit like 80% of the fairways and avoid those bunkers because it's almost a stroke penalty sometimes when you get in some of the bunkers here. He's not a guy I'm particularly excited about seeing. To be fair, he did finish 15th last year here, but it was like that's his best finish, I think, maybe ever here. It may be his, he's a great long iron player. I'm kind of nervous, and you see him tend to do this, is like when he gets uncomfortable, he hits like 3 woods off the tees, and he's going to leave himself 220 yards into some of these greens. And I don't know if he'll opt for that. And I just don't. Just his win equity, or just like it doesn't seem that high.
Yeah, and the one other thing to note is this event is kind of his event, sponsored by his foundation.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing, right?
So
we talked about that with Ricky. Yeah, it's like
he's a bunch of other responsibilities this week, to where he's sure Tiger's focused on golf when he's on the course, but he's got so many other things to deal with off the course due to this event. He obviously has managers and stuff that handle all this, but it's just an extra variable that, I'm not saying it 100% affects his game, but small little things like this can add up, and
it pulls him away from golf, right?
Exactly, right. So.
Yeah, and we talked about that and that's probably the biggest hesitation with Tiger this week for me, is like, I know he's going to hit his long iron as well. He has his entire career. Yeah. He doesn't have the length anymore, but he has gone up at least a little bit off the tee. But the big hesitation for me, and we've seen this with Ricky, at the Farmers, like these guys, when they host these events, there's just so much shit going on, and they tend to stray away from golf a little bit. So I wouldn't have an edge on Tiger here anyway. I thought he should have been like in the 20 to 25 range from a model perspective, but I could definitely see fading him, in general.
So do you have any closing comments before we wrap it up here?
No, just a good week. I could add some more matchups here. I'm kind of monitoring some stuff. So check out all our plays on elitesportsbetting.com. I know Paulie will have a bunch, and you'll probably add some first round stuff, and you add stuff throughout the week. I'll tend to put stuff in early, and I might do some first round stuff, but we'll see.
Yeah. So I have all my matchups, I believe, set up on the site on elitesportsbetting.com already. I'll have matchups the first round, have some first round leader bets as well up there, and then any other additional bets that pop up will be posted throughout the week. And then if you have any questions, I'm in the chat room, or you can hit either of us up on Twitter if you have questions as well. And this has been another edition of the Up and Down, sponsored by elitesportsbetting.com.